Hello, world. My name is Deena Beasley, and I'm your host for Living the Dream podcast, a place to come for excitement, love, fun, gossip, and just real life experiences. Today, my guests are Officer Turnipseed and Dr. Sikka. Officer Turnipseed is a law enforcement officer for Georgia, also community leader and coach. Dr. Sikka is Vice President of Performance and Technology for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He is also founder of SMART, Sports Medicine Analytic Research Team. Dr. Sikka will also be testing NBA players for the COVID-19 antibiotics. So you guys, this is going to be an exciting show. So sit back and join me. Hi
Hello.
There.
How are you?
Officer Turnipseed. I like saying that.
Miss Beasley, how's it going?
It's going extremely well. How about yourself?
No complaints, no complaints.
You look so young.
I look young.
Yes, you do.
Wow, thank you. I feel young sometimes too, especially when I'm asleep. But when I wake up, it starts to hit me.
Do you cramp up in the mornings, or your muscles sore, or what?
I don't cramp up, but sometimes going up and downstairs, my knees might get a little achy.
Yeah, well, I think that starts when you're about, 15? So I'm like 26 now, so it's been happening to me for a while. So it's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while.
I know, it's been some years. How's everybody doing?
Everybody is fantastic.
Great.
Malik is in Minnesota now.
Okay, all right. No more Denver.
No more Denver. He's with the Timberwolves, and he's doing extremely well there. He's starting and averaging about 21 points a game. So
I'm not surprised.
oh, that's sweet. Well, since you shouldn't be, because you were his coach for 3 years, was it?
2 years.
How many?
2.
Two. Okay. In middle school, 7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th. That's right.
And if I'm not mistaken, you guys had an undefeated season.
Both years that he was there, we sure did.
Wow. What was that like? Was it your first time?
It was great. I mean, those were 2 wonderful years. I mean, as I recall, Malik was he's a great kid, great basketball player, and an outstanding personality too. So he kept me laughing. He kept me screaming too, but he's a great kid.
What are some of the typical things you would scream at him about?
Slow down. Wait on your teammates. Because he's a speedster. He would get down the court before everybody. Wait on your teammate. This is a team game. Wait on your teammates. He would be going so fast that everybody else would have a difficult time keeping up with him.
Yeah, he's still doing that though.
By the time the other team got down court, Malik would have scored his 3, and he'd be headed back down on for defense.
That's funny. I'm glad you said that, because I thought I was the only one thinking that. Some people ask me, they say, "Does Malik have a rocket in his butt?"
He's fast.
Oh, he really does. I think it's because he enjoys the game so much,
and he puts everything into it.
Yeah, he truly and still does. He's a father now. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I know. I've seen the baby. I think I don't know if you sent me a text of the baby or I seen the baby online. I don't know, because I follow him. If I haven't heard anything, I'll Google him and see how he's doing. So I may have seen the baby online.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, he's a cutie pie. So I am a grandma. I'm a grandma.
All right, Nana.
Yeah. I tell the grandbabies to call me Mimi. He has one, and my oldest son, Darius, has a baby as well, a little boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're grandma times 2.
Times 2. But it's a good feeling.
Okay, I'm sure.
My youngest is 19 now. So she's in college. So it's time.
Where is she? What school?
She's in Georgia State. She's still here.
Mm-hmm. All right, good for her. I work down there a lot. I'm surprised I hadn't seen her down there.
Was she at this campus up here where we live?
Okay, now
so this year she's supposed to transfer to downtown.
Okay.
Do you remember what she looks like?
Of course I do.
Girl, she's a fox now. Her body is woo. I gotta keep.
You sent me pictures of her last year.
No, she's changed.
Farmer Alpharetta?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She
has definitely grown into her own.
She definitely is. She's acting now.
I think you mentioned that as well. Yeah. So she's following in your footsteps.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and my hubby.
But that's good.
The last half of our lives footsteps, because we got a lot of footsteps. So let me ask you this. The name of my podcast is Living the Dream. And are you living your dream?
I think I am. I mean, for a while, my dreams kind of switched up on me, but now, what, especially over the past 20 years, I think I am, because initially my dream was to become an attorney, a defense attorney to help underprivileged people.
Okay.
When that didn't pan out, then I became a police officer, and once I started working with kids, I think that's when I started to live my dream, because um, it's my desire to help kids, especially those kids who are at risk, who don't have ideal situations at home,
Right.
So yeah, I think now I am.
Well, good. Sometimes your dream doesn't come until you're matured and you realized in the beginning that your dream wasn't what you thought it was. And
Right.
you switch careers and you finally say, oh, I'm living the dream.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they say when you're living your dream, it's not like working. It's just doing something you love to do and getting money for it.
Right. And I feel like that. I mean, I love going to work. I do.
Right. Well, you are a police officer. How long have you been in this force?
I've been a police officer for probably 30 years, but I've been with my current
How
department for
many?
26. 30?
30.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you don't look old enough.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I got the hat hiding my gray hair, so that's it.
Well, we
I just got the
understand.
red hair show.
Oh, red hair in the back, gray in the front.
Yeah.
We don't know. We got to get you an MB5 hat or a Timberwolves hat.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I would definitely rep that.
I'd definitely get you some.
Okay.
So is there a special training? It's a lot going on in today's life with the pandemic and there's a lot going on in life with the pandemic and protesting in Minnesota. So do you guys have special training for cases like this? I'm going to start that whole part over because I messed up. We're going to kick that part out.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of things going on in the world today with the pandemic and the protesters. Normally, Minnesota is a pretty quiet place. And so you've been in the service for 30 years. And do you guys have any special training against like protesters or racism or any special training towards things like that?
Well, there are trainings. A lot of departments, especially now, they're starting to engage officers in those trainings. You have like cultural awareness training, and what it does, it teaches you to deal with different multicultures in the United States, because there are so many different cultures here and so much diversity. So it teaches you to be sensitive, and it also gives you insight on how to develop positive relationships with multicultural people as well. So even if your department don't sign you up for it, a lot of times the officer they'll seek that training out for themselves.
Do you see that happening a lot now?
I do. I mean, I've seen it increase over the years, and I imagine that after this particular incident that we're in now, after what we're going through right now, I imagine that more and more officers and more departments would definitely enroll officers in that training.
Okay. And you're in Georgia. What is it like in Georgia, protesting?
It's been a lot. It's been a whole lot. I mean, downtown Atlanta, even in little smaller towns like Alpharetta's had some, Johns Creek's had some protesting, and Fairburn, College Park. I mean, and I understand. I do. I mean, after seeing that video, you don't have to be a police officer to understand the rage that people are feeling, and those officers should certainly be held accountable for what they've done. But what I try to get people to realize is that that's a minority of police officers. That's not a majority, because the officers that I know and work with, they would give their own life before they harm someone else or allow another officer to harm someone else. So that's not the majority of police officers. I mean, even though it seems like we've had so many officer-related shootings with unarmed people, I still say that's a minority of police. And It has to change. Departments have to do better vetting. They have to make sure they're getting officers that are not biased, and they have to make sure they're getting officers that are not afraid to go in the community and work,
Exactly, because I think a lot of it stemmed for fear of the not unknown, and
Right.
A lot of people, when they're afraid of something, they just get in attack mode automatically.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people think that they're more corrupt, police officers are more corrupt within, and with you saying that you only know a few that may have that racism attitude, that's really refreshing to hear. And
Actually, I don't know any, and I work with both black and white officers. I don't know one officer that would have done that or even stood by and allowed it to be done. I mean, I know that racism exists in the police field because it exists everywhere. I mean, we live in a racist world, and that hasn't changed. And until we do something to change it, it's going to remain. But like I said, I work with black and white officers. I'm on the SWAT team, and I don't know one officer that would have allowed that to happen or would have done it themselves. I just don't.
Yeah, well, Georgia is a special place too.
It is
the home of the civil rights, and people, although they like to say we're not civilized, we're very civilized.
Right.
People here, and yeah, it's just amazing what's going on in the world today with the pandemic, together with the protesting that put people in a lot of danger as well, because we're forgetting about how dangerous and fatal this pandemic is, because all of our attention is focused on the protesters.
Right.
In your where you work in your area, are there a lot of officers that's out because of the pandemic, or
no?
not?
We've been working straight through. I mean, we haven't. I mean, we just have to put a mask on and go. You just make sure you take care and use caution. Wear your mask, especially when you're within 6 feet of someone, and just pray and keep it moving. It's unfortunately so far we've not had anybody afflicted with it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So listen, let's lighten up a little bit. I hear that police have quotas, like giving people tickets. Like, if you have like 5 cars on the freeway and they're all speeding, who would you give the ticket to? How do you determine who gets the ticket?
Fortunately for me, I don't write tickets right now. So, but my previous experience, whoever you clock. I mean, if you're running radar and you clock a vehicle, that's the vehicle that you're going to be responsible for giving a violation to. Some officers have gotten really fancy to the point where they can pull 2 cars at one time. I've never had that ability, though.
Oh, really?
Right.
Well, if they're racing, that's obvious, right?
Right, but you still got to focus on one vehicle. You can try and catch 2 or 3 if you want to. You end up with 9. So you want to focus. If you're running radar and you clocking a vehicle, you clock that vehicle, and that's the vehicle that you pursue.
What is the fastest you've ever gone chasing someone?
I don't chase.
Oh, you don't? Oh, excuse me.
I mean, if you chase someone, then you run the risk of putting innocent people in danger as well. I mean, there are other ways to catch a person other than chasing, I think.
Okay.
So I operate on no chase policy. My department has a no chase policy.
Oh, well, that's cool. And does all police officers, they don't necessarily do trafficking. There's different departments for everything, right?
Right.
Because I don't know. I mean, I used to think, and I still kind of do think, that they're the same guys that give you tickets are the same ones that raid houses, or the same ones that do duties crossing the street, safety duties like that. But it's all different departments. Is that correct?
That's correct. You have traffic units, you have homicide units, you have CID, you have SWAT. You have, the department is made up of a variety of sub departments within the department.
What is CID? I never heard that expression.
That's a criminal investigation division.
And what does SWAT stands for?
Special weapons and tactics.
Oh, okay. We have the SWATs here in Atlanta, so I just.
What's that? Southwest Atlanta.
Yeah, you were talking about protesting. I was in Alpharetta. I'm protesting a few days back, It was very quiet, very different from what I see on TV. But the message was getting across. We had a lot of people driving by, honking the horn in support, and it's really great to see the diverse people working together, holding hands, and there were white kids writing signs, making signs on the grass and giving it to us blacks, and people were bringing water. They had food and fruit and just making sure everyone was comfortable. It was more of a loving expression than anger. I didn't see any angry people out there when I was there.
Most protests they're very calm. You actually have people that are considered professional rioters or professional looters.
Yes.
Anytime there are protests, they'll go from one city or one state just to create havoc, just to loot and start problems. But most 95% of your protests are going to be like that, like you just explained. They're going to be diverse. They're going to be calm. They're specific. They're detail specific, trying to get their point across. But you just have those few that want to get in and start problems. But even in Atlanta, once you've seen those few people weeded out, the rest of the protests downtown were very quiet, very calm. There was no need for any more tear gas or anything like that.
Well, have they tear gassed anyone here yet that you know of?
I didn't hear you.
Have they tear gassed anyone here that you know of?
Well, in Atlanta, they did the first couple of nights downtown because there was so much looting and so much rioting that they, in order to try and gain control of the situation again, they did have to use tear gas.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about George Floyd, but you kind of touched on that earlier when you said that, you didn't feel that it was right and that the officers should get their just accordingly. So, I'm sorry, I have a ferocious.
I can tell that bark sounds really, really just sounds like it almost made me run out my own house.
Sorry about that. So how can we make it easier for people to communicate with the police?
Well, because it's got to be twofold. People have to work at it, and police have to work at it too. You have to realize that police officers are human. They're human beings as well. And police officers have to realize that, not everybody is a criminal. You have to decriminalize people, so to speak. What we do with my department, we have a thing called community-oriented policing, where we go into the community and we work with the community, because in order to reduce crime, you've got to have the community's involvement, because that's who's going to tell you, a lot of things that to solve crimes. And if you don't have their trust, if you can't gain their trust, then they're not going to tell you anything. So the police have to work and go out and get to know the people that they're policing in their community. They have to go out and not be afraid and talk to the people. And the people have to accept the police officers as human beings also, and not just categorize them as being a bad cop like a lot of people do. And that's how you start a good rapport. You start to gain trust with one another that way.
Yeah, because people just don't understand what your thoughts are. And they just judge you. They judge by the cover, not by the
put you all in the same boat. They think all cops, just want to be bad. Cops want to be bad. Look, if you didn't have that gun, I could take you, all that kind of stuff. But police officers are human beings. We are. And we have feelings, we have emotions just like anyone else, Right.
I laugh because I could see that, because you're female, I could see some dude saying to you, hey, you think you're bad because you got that gun. Take that gun up, I'll whip your tail, girl.
They are, and they do. They're going to trap, especially females, but they anytime police officers come on the scene, it immediately adds tension to the scene.
Right.
To the police officer has to break that tension. And the way you do that is by letting the people know on the scene that, hey, I'm transparent. You can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat everybody fair. I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to just draw conclusions that you're guilty of something. I'm going to listen. And that's how we take a class called interpersonal relations, and that's how you relate with the community, by not walking in and just automatically seem like you're judging somebody or seem like you're just accusing somebody without even saying it.
But then you have people that feel like they're guilty anyways. They take a defensive attitude all the time.
Right, and you
regardless
have
of
to, as a
how
police
you
officer,
feel.
unfortunately, you have to be able to work through to that person as well. You know, let them know that, hey, I'm not here. I'm not a judge. I'm not here to decide whether you're innocent or guilty. I'm just here to assess the facts and make a decision based on the facts that I receive. You know, and from that point, if I have to make an arrest, I'll make an arrest. But you'll still have your day in court. You'll still have an opportunity to presume whether to approve whether you're innocent or guilty.
Okay. So has anyone ever pleaded with you not to arrest them? Do you
Yeah,
get that
lots
a
of
lot?
times. Lots of times, yeah.
Yes.
And every situation doesn't have to end in arrest either. I
Right.
mean, sometimes I have the opportunity to decide. But if it's a violation of the law, then I have I don't have any leeway. But that's how you develop good community relations. Is if you have a situation that don't have to end in an arrest, then don't let it end in an arrest. You know, that's how you gain confidence from the community.
So if a kid walks in a store and he steals a bag of potato chip, is that breaking the law?
It is breaking the law.
So you
I
would
mean, it's
have to
stealing.
arrest him for breaking the law?
Yes, I could.
Right.
Or I could put him in the car and take him home and talk to his parents.
Right. Okay. Now, can all police officers do that?
They can operate within their discretion most of the times. But if it's something really severe, then no, you don't have the discretion.
Right.
But if it's a bag of chips, some candy, I mean, you can utilize discretion with that.
Are there any programs available for kids who may have stole a bag of chips and was sent to jail, and he needs to reform himself? Are there any
Well,
programs?
I don't know if there are programs or not. I think there used to be, but times have changed so much over the past few years that resources they're a lot more limited now than what they used to be. But I will always tell people who are having problems with their kids to reach out to the courts. You know, try and get some type of intervention from the juvenile. If it's a juvenile, try and get some type of intervention from the juvenile system. And a lot of times that does help.
Great. Okay. Wow, this is very interesting. So, have there been any new rules made up or new laws lately that you want to share?
Well, you know, new laws come about every year. January, you can go and you can find amendments to laws all the time. But I imagine that. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I imagine that coming from where we are now, there are going to be a lot of new laws based on the times that we're in right now, especially with the police officers and the police brutality, claims of police brutality. I imagine that there are going to be a lot of
Right.
new laws coming
There
forward.
are serious
Yeah,
police
I mean,
brutality. It's on video, caught on TV, plain to see.
yeah. Well, and people are calling to defund
I
police
felt,
officers, which is extreme because if you do that, then what are you going to do?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
I believe that the justice system needs to make some changes, and I believe that they will. But defunding the police is just not the
it's
answer.
not the answer because we do look on to you guys to protect and serve.
Right. So if you defund the police, then somebody breaks in your house at night. Who are you going to call?
Roto-Rooter. Can't call nobody. You just gonna have to pull out that AK. Oh wow. So yeah, so things change and we grow, and I think right now there's kind of like a revolution. Once the protesting is over, it's going to be a new world. And these youth I'm really proud to say that these youth today, they're really fighting for justice. They're standing together and they're fighting. It's the young ones that are out there on the front lines. And it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, because I understand the need to get out and voice your opinion and fight. I do. I get it because there is a need for it. And to see that they're doing it and they're unifying and to see the diversity, that's what really, I like to see. It's just not the black kids or it's white people that's getting involved. I live out here in Dallas, Georgia, and I rode downtown, getting ready to ride through downtown yesterday, and I saw a group of white people out there with signs that said Black Lives Matter. This is Dallas, Georgia. I would have never expected to see that.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't expect to see as many people out for Alpharetta as I did. And like I said, you can see the white kids on the ground. I mean, when I say kids, I mean teenagers,
Right.
Making posts to Black Lives Matter and starting the chanting. And it was so refreshing. But speaking of that, did you see the movement overseas?
Oh, yeah. It's huge.
Oh, my God. They are really out there.
Amsterdam. Yeah, it is. It's huge.
Did you see in London? I'm sorry, in Bristol, England, they tore down the statue of Carlton.
The statue, yeah.
And literally rolled him down the street into the harbor.
Yep, and that's where the kids were trying to catch it.
Yeah.
Trying to stop it. Yeah.
That was some aggression right there.
Yeah, it was.
But you know what I heard? A friend of mine who's British was saying that they, meaning the Britons, just found out recently, as recent as the past week, that their taxes were being paid to former slave owners up until the year 2015, and nobody knew that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and so they were frustrated about that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No,
I hadn't heard that.
Know it either.
Yeah, to former slave owners?
Well, it was like paying reparation to, for generations. For generations.
Well, I could see where the aggression comes from.
Yeah. I mean, people have a lot of withheld aggression and issues, and now it's the opportunity. They feel it's the opportunity to bring them out.
Right.
Yeah. So they, a lot of people need excuses. Well, they have big excuse now. But right. I am happy to see a change come, and I do believe in peace and love, and everyone should be equal. And I'm doing my part, as well as giving back to the community. A couple of my friends have businesses downtown, and we're donating with the MB5 Foundation. Malik has a foundation called MB5 Foundation.
Okay.
And our initiatives are focused on the underprivileged as well as financial literacy. So.
Okay, well, good for Malik. I didn't know that.
Yeah, girl. We've been giving camps for the past 4 years. Did you know that?
Okay. When Malik first started playing basketball in middle school, I used to call him a scrub all the time.
Why you do that?
That was my name for him, Scrub. I see him, and I'd be sitting there, I say, "What's up, Scrub?" He just started laughing.
And he just show you on the court, right?
Yep, he did.
Now, Malik is doing so many things. He's got such a huge heart. I remember, we lived in Denver when he was drafted, and one day I was riding in the car with him in Denver because we moved out there, and he drove past this guy who was a homeless guy, and he stayed on the corner, begging for money all day. So every day Malik would give him money, and then one day Malik just bought him a bicycle, took him a bicycle, gave him a bike, and ever since then, Malik would give him clothes. I mean, it's just right. Like he was Malik's kid, and it just shows how big his heart is.
Right.
During the camp, we have a shoe drive for gently used shoes that we give back to the community also. So I'm very proud of him. And I'm grateful for you because he learned a lot of things from you.
Good.
I'm not saying just basketball, but he learned how to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, that was Malik used to come visit me even after he left middle school and went to high school. He would come back over and talk to me and hang out with me. Even when he, I think when he finished high school, he came back once, and him and a group of kids that he used to hang with, and they came over and hung out with me for a while.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So we'll actually be giving camps in Atlanta going forward because, who knows where he'll be in the future, and we just want to continue to give back to the communities, and this is where he's from, so.
Right.
Seeing more of you, hopefully, maybe you can even coach some of the teams.
Hey, that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to dust your shoes off now.
My shoes ain't never dusty.
Oh, excuse me.
They ain't never dusty. I don't let dust settle on my shoes.
Wow. So this has been a really, 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 really great chat with you. I'm glad that you agreed to do this.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to let people know about?
Well, just give police a chance. Not like I said, not all police officers are bad police officers. Majority of police officers are really, really good police officers, and they would protect you at any length. Just give them a chance. Just give them a chance.
Well, now
And
it's a great
communicate.
time because they're really weeding out the bad ones. They're weeding themselves out.
Right.
Because
and
you
that's
just
what they're
can't
doing.
change
They are
overnight.
They
So
are.
their personalities and character is still there. So you
Right.
can't hide just because the camera's there. It's going to come out. So
That's
they're
right.
weeding themselves out. And after this, I'm sure we're going to have a peaceful, safe world again.
We will. Things will get better. Things will get better from here.
I
Just
can't
tell
wait.
people to bag the blue line. Bag the blue line.
Oh, what does that mean?
This is the police line. It's called the blue line. You know how people say there's a thin blue line with cops.
Yeah,
This
right.
is the blue line. And I always tell people to bag the blue line. Just get behind the blue line and bag us up. I mean, we're gonna protect you at whatever cost. We're gonna make sure your constitutional rights are protected. I mean, just support us. That's all. Just support us.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I support you, and you can call me anytime and let me know. Let me know anything, whatever you need.
Okay, and you do the same for me as far as helping out with Malik and his camps and stuff. If I can help, I'll be happy to do so.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, thank you for joining me on Living the Dream. And one more time, are you living your dream?
I am living my dream. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming on the show. And
thanks for having me.
Safe time. Stay safe and beautiful, and take care of these people out here.
I sure will. I'll die trying, and that's the truth.
Oh. Well, we hope it doesn't get to that, but.
Well, we hope it don't, but I'm just saying that's, I pledge my life to my career. I do, to the people that I serve and protect.
That's beautiful. And on that note, we'll say goodbye.
See you later. Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. How are you?
Good, Deena. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for joining me on Living the Dream podcast.
I appreciate you having me, and look, anything I can do to support you. I love the Beasley family, and hey, I'm living the dream.
Oh, I like that. You catch on really quickly. Wow. So how are things in Minnesota? Because I know you're there, and It's been a lot of things going on. So how are things there right now?
It's been a tough week, not just for Minnesota, but for the entire country and the entire world as we start to think about, again, which we should never really stop thinking about, social injustice and treating people the right way. And this has been a very unfortunate reminder for us that we have a long way to go as a society. And it's heartbreaking for me. I grew up in Minnesota. I love this place, and this community means a lot to me. To see the community in this much pain, it makes me sad. And it's also inspiring because it shows us that if we do things the right way and we treat people the right way, we have a lot of progress that we can make in a short period of time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So those who don't know, Dr. Sikka works with the Timberwolves. He is the anesthesiologist, and he's also the liaison between sports and medicine. He developed a data analytic program with pro sports teams in the area of injury analytics and performance training. So how's that going now? Working, are you working much right now?
So when we went on hiatus starting in March, that sort of changed my day-to-day routine from helping to prevent injuries to helping our team cope with a global pandemic. And, this is something that's impacted every country and every community. And some communities have been hit harder than others. My job is to not just prepare our teams and our players and our families and our staff, but I've always had a bigger perspective. And sports is a great metaphor for life and a great way to look at everything in life. And if we can take care of our athletes and our families, then we can do a good job of taking care of our urban communities and developing countries. So we have to use this as a platform to really help. So I'm working 18 hours a day. My wife knows that, and my daughter knows that too. But this is an opportunity for us to do right and to help the world. And great moments are born out of great opportunities. So this is something that I've used as a chance for me to do right by the Timberwolves, to do right by our community, to help the governor's office here. So yeah, I've been busting my butt and working hard because I want to make a difference. And every person is touched by this in some way. And I know you guys have had, your family touched by this disease, and the Timberwolves have been hit hard. It's been really tough, and I want to do right by everybody in this organization.
Well, that's fantastic. And with me, you've been doing very right. And I appreciate all the help that you extended to our family when we were going through the pandemic with my cousin. We really appreciate it. So you're working 18 hours. That leaves very few hours of rest and time with your family. But I'm sure
you try and combine it. You try and, I share an office usually with my 2-year-old. And so she'll come in and she'll type on her laptop and she'll say, Dada working laptop. And, hey, that makes it easy to work.
Right.
And my wife is the one who does a lot of the heavy lifting because she's the one that has to carry our family. So a lot of credit goes to her in how much she does for us. But I think that's the same with a lot of families. Like, this has brought out a lot of stressors in families who've, they're seeing family members get sick. The fear, the unknown brings out anxiety in people. And so we don't know when this is going to go away. We don't know when we're all going to have the new normal and be able to go watch a basketball game and not be thinking about it. And because of that, it's stressful. And the mental health parts of this are really, really important to remember because everybody's going through it and dealing with that stress in a different way.
Yeah, and that's probably what spurred some of the protesting also.
Absolutely. People, look, it's not just unrest about what happened with George Floyd and the tragic murder there. It's unrest with how people have been treated for a long time. It's unrest with people and their feelings of how come urban communities are getting hit by coronavirus more? How come the African American population in this country is getting hit worse than other populations? How come Detroit got hit so bad? And these are questions that we need to ask ourselves as a society, because the answer is not just one thing. The answer is a multitude of reasons for why these populations are getting hit and why we've had a tougher time controlling the disease in certain areas. That's one of the many, many tragedies of COVID.
Yeah, it's been tragic. It has been, and I'm so sorry to everyone out there that's been dealing with it. So how do you stay healthy during this pandemic, Dr. Sikka?
It's a combination of things. I try and eat healthy. Generally in life, I try and live by moderation. I've never drank alcohol, so that also helps too at a time like this. But for me, it's a balance, and I happen to have a basketball court, so I can shoot and run around with my daughter. She likes to just come in and say, "Dada, shoot it," and so she can come in and watch me miss 3-pointers. But I've gotten pretty good from the free throw line, so that helps. And then the other thing is, the Timberwolves have been really forward thinking in how they've approached technology and training. So there's companies like Tonal, which is a really unique product. It's the gym that goes on your wall with a giant screen with digital weights. And the data that you get from a product like that is something that they build your fitness program. Wow, and it takes the expertise of somebody like Bill Burgos and myself and Greg Farnham, and it turns it into a really, really unique program for somebody to be able to work out at home in a space that's, next to nothing. So being able to use devices like that through the Timberwolves has really helped me stay in shape. And, then when you're constantly moving, I like to walk when I'm on the phone. So typically I'm walking around and running around, and that helps keep me active too.
Okay, I've never heard of that, and yet you're using it.
Well, the other thing is, and I think this goes to some of the questions that you're probably going to have today, Deena, which is, what are some of the things that people can do nutrition-wise at a time like this to minimize their risk? Let's not forget, just because, COVID is the risk today, there's still a lot of other things that people can get.
Absolutely.
So there was an article, and Dr. Fauci spoke about it yesterday, talking about vitamin D and vitamin D deficiency. And people who are vitamin D deficient may have an increased risk of getting sick at a time like this. Not just COVID, but just in general getting sick. So making sure you're taking your vitamin C, making sure you're taking your supplements, those all make a difference. And if you do that, you give yourself a better chance to generally stay healthy.
Great, because I take 5,000 milligrams of vitamin D a day.
Absolutely.
and 2,000 or 3,000 of vitamin C.
Yep.
So,
And even with the sunlight, you should continue that, because those things are helping you, just in general, maintain a homeostasis for your body and letting your body excrete out what it doesn't need, but utilize what it does need. So I think those are really, really good habits. And there's other small supplements, whether it's garlic or small things that can make a difference for you at a time like this to help you maintain a good balance. And then it's just minimizing inflammatory things. You and I talked early on about avoiding Advil, and
yes.
we talked to a lot of families about avoiding anti-inflammatories because we think that may increase your risk of having some complications. And it's probably a good general concept to follow at a time like this. Don't get inflamed, eat things that are less likely to cause inflammation body-wise right now, so you don't have more inflammation, so you don't need the Advil.
Right. So, we need to just go on Google and start Googling those things. Now, can you tell me how to keep my weight down?
Hey, we're going to get you in an off-season program, Deena. Okay. We're going to get you, just because it's the off-season doesn't mean you don't have to be ready to come in and work out with Makai.
Well, I'm actually staying fit. We have a very competitive family here.
I know
our
that.
daughter lost about 25 pounds in 6 weeks. 7 weeks tops, and my husband lost 15, and I've lost about 7. But that's good for me, because I generally stay leveled at one point. But now, because everyone's getting smaller, I need to be smaller. So,
hey, the number one thing for consistent weight loss is that dieting generally doesn't lead to consistent weight loss. The number one thing you need to do is find balance. And so portion control while adding a little bit of activity. Those little things start to take off 300 calories a day. And if you do 300 calories a day over 10 days, that's a pound. And over 10 days, 1 pound of weight loss, you start adding those up, all of a sudden, 3-4 months down the line, you have sustainable weight loss. And the goal has to be, again, that whatever you're doing, it's sustainable. That's what we're trying to emphasize. And it's one of the reasons, I have diabetics in my family. My father's diabetic, and I love him to death. And we're trying to get him to be more active at a time like this. But it's hard to be active when you've had to stay indoors for the last 4 months.
Right. It is. But, there are ways. I've watched television. They have new things where you can sit and just pedal.
Absolutely.
You don't have to get off the sofa or out of your bed, really. So there are a lot of new innovative things coming out of this. Now, I need to ask you a question now. How do you deal with colleagues who refuse to be tested or fail to report they have the virus if it's known that they have it?
Part of that is, I think, once people understand the implications of this virus and the long-term implications, you heal that fear and that anxiety or the desire to not report or the refusal by educating and empowering people and making them feel like they're part of a team. So you share with them the why, you educate them. You don't tell them that they're wrong for not wanting to test. You try and understand the why and understand the science behind what they're telling you, and you educate them. And it's all out of love. And I truly believe that, because I treat your family the same way I treat my family. We treat people as equals in this world because we truly love people. And when you love someone, you go the extra mile to make sure that they understand that you're just doing this because you care. And I think the more times you demonstrate that in a group, the more times that people end up realizing, okay, this guy's going to go the extra mile for us. Let's do the test because it makes sense. And this guy was able to explain it in a way that is logical.
Has someone confided with you that they have the virus?
Yeah, I've had people that were surprised by their test results, that their antibody testing showed that they had it, and it's led to really good conversations about, okay, so you had coronavirus. Who else in your family may have had it? Let's try and help them understand, what are the risks there? What do they need to do? And when you go the extra mile for someone's family, they see that it's genuine. It's not just about, in our situation, it's not just about a game or a job. It's about their life, and you're trying to protect their grandparents. I love my grandparents. Like when you're trying to protect grandparents, you're going to win some fans.
Absolutely. We all wish well, I don't have any grandparents any longer, but when I had them.
But you're a grandma, and when
Yeah.
and when
Ooh,
Malik,
don't say that. Yeah, I am. Twice over.
But look at that, Deena, when Malik sees that that I care about you, he's gonna feel more vested. He's
Yeah.
gonna feel more like, hey, this concern is real. Like, this guy is going out of his way to make sure that, my mom is safe. Then and again, that's when that comes from the heart, it makes it really, really easy.
And you've shown us so much support and love. And I can't thank you enough for dealing with
My pleasure. Hey,
dealing and helping us when we went through our situation. But Dr. Sikka, you found it smart, and it's something to consult with professional colleagues in high school sports programs to develop injury prevention strategies. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I've had some unique opportunities over the last 20 years of working in sport, and we've been able to develop a lot of different programs to help teams, not just prevent injuries, but help players who do get hurt to rehab and optimize their return to play and return to sport. In this world, data is king. The more information you have, the more you're going to be able to empower people. And I tell my wife this all the time. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to empower you to make the best decisions and be the best version of yourself. And so if we take that, and I can use data and information to give you something that you can make the decision, then it's you making the decision. So for us, a lot of this is just collecting data to empower athletes. So we collect a lot of shot tracking information. We collect how many miles you ran, and we build that back to things that matter to you, like what do you eat that day, or what do you do to recover that day, or how much should you sleep. And people ask me all the time, like, oh man, my Fitbit score was this, or how much should I sleep, or how much water should I drink? And everybody's different, and I can't say that this is what you should absolutely do. So we try and build a program for each individual. And when we've done that for high schools and for youth athletes, families feel like their kids are being treated like superstars. Right. So it's been fun to have that experience.
But that's necessary because everybody buildup is different.
Absolutely.
There's not one program for everyone. Everyone
Absolutely.
Their individual programs. So
I slept 4 hours. Yeah, I slept 4 hours today. Most people aren't going to work on 4 hours. Right. Everybody's different.
Yeah, I think I slept 6 hours, and I still need about 2 or 3 more. But I like the part when you said you don't tell your wife what to do. Hey, Mike.
Oh boy.
No, I'm joking. He doesn't tell me what to do. Sometimes he does. But anywho, so Minnesota is normally a pretty quiet place, peaceful. How are you dealing with all the protesting and stuff going on?
Look, we have to make changes here, and we have to make changes that are strategic, that are designed to have a long-term impact. It's not just a change to make a change. It's not just a short-term fix. Where we're at has taken us many, many decades to get here. We're not going to solve it with a snap of a finger, unfortunately. What we're going to solve it with is by educating people, and by starting with kids. That one of our coaches posted a video the other day of a little kid going around at a rally, and I think the kid was maybe 2-3 years old, just going around hugging people.
Oh.
And you know what? When you're 2-3, you know what to do. You know that you just go and show people love. And we learn the wrong things as we grow up. We learn bad habits. When you're innocent and you're a kid and you treat people that way, that's what we need to get back to. It's truly being selfless to help every person, because we're all going through stuff. And what I'm going through is no less important than what you're going through. It's no less important than what somebody in South Minneapolis is going through. But we got to give ourselves up and be selfless. And that's what my parents taught me growing up, is you have to give yourself up just a little bit to get the most out of society, to get to be selfless with yourself. And we have a mantra in our house that happiness, winning, and success are not our goal. They're a result of doing things the right way.
I like that.
Every day.
I like that. Well, mine is see it, believe it, achieve it.
Hey, that's great. And you know what? Because I see that with Malik, because he's somebody who he sets a goal, he goes and he works to get his goal, and he achieves his goal. And he played great for us this year, and we're excited about someone like him because he goes and he embodies that and he lives it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I taught him well. I guess his dad helped also, but we taught him well, and I appreciate that.
You did, and you should be proud.
So I heard the NBA will be returning July 31st.
Yep.
And you have a big part in that. I hear you're doing the testing of the COVID virus for the teams. Is that correct?
We're helping the league, and we're helping our, not just Mayo Clinic through the antibody testing, but helping to provide information for the league through our sports science committee and evaluating all the different testing options. One of the things that's critical here is we have a unique opportunity with the NBA. The NBA is a small group of people that we can do testing on a frequent basis. And we don't have a test that, say, I can bring to Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. and go and test thousands of people quickly and easily and get results fast. We haven't done studies like that. We haven't done projects like that. And the NBA has a bigger picture in mind. They want to do right by society. They want to help the country with testing. And if we do that, then we give ourselves a chance to really take advantage of this unique situation that the NBA is a controlled, healthy, young population. And we can develop tests that can really make a difference for developing countries, for urban populations that are being hit harder than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that there are so many different type of testings going around, and people are confused about which ones work and which ones doesn't. I mean, they have a CVS on the corner and they're doing testing there. Is that test better than the ones that they're doing at the hospitals? Or as a civilian, we don't know where to go to get tested to get a good result, the best results. What do you suggest?
So that's a terrific question. And I think it underscores what a lot of people in America are thinking. Because when you hear testing, you think every test is the same. So let's separate out the tests into two separate groups. So one is what we call PCR testing. PCR testing looks to see, do you have coronavirus right now, in that moment that you're being tested? Serology testing or antibody testing looks at, did you have coronavirus in the past? Just because you didn't have it in the past doesn't mean you don't have it now.
Okay.
So, right? So you could have had a totally clean month and be sitting on coronavirus right now. So you can't just do one test and say, hey, I'm totally good. And the other part is you could test today and you could be negative for coronavirus today and also have antibodies, which means you didn't have it a month ago, but you could be positive tomorrow and not even know it. That's the unique part about this disease. So so do you need to test every day? Yeah, you need to test every day. But we as a society haven't had access to that many tests. So when we talk about testing shortages, we were only testing the people that were sick for a period of time. And we've gotten to a point now where we have enough tests. What we need to figure out is we think that the number of people who are spreading the disease is a small number. They're so-called super spreaders. There's been stories of people who are at choir practice. They were a little sick and they spread it to 60 to 80 people.
Wow.
They may have, in some situations, the barber who was wearing a mask but was a little sick exposed 90 people. So those are the situations we need to avoid. So the number one thing you should do is, if you are feeling a little bit under the weather, stay home. Number two, if you feel under the weather, you should contact your doctor. And commercial tests at labs in general have a much wider variety of accuracy. The best tests tend to be at a clinic or at a hospital. Those tests take a little bit longer to run, but we're getting better. The biggest hope, Deena, and I think this is something that hopefully the people who listen to this podcast can take home. The biggest hope is that we don't have to use swabs. I'm sure you've seen the videos of people
Absolutely.
Where we're sticking something way back into their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got tested this morning as part of a project we're doing. And it's not comfortable. I sneezed, I was coughing. It's not easy. But the hope is that we can develop a saliva test where you spit into a cup. What's cool about what we're doing with saliva, and I don't want to get too gross, but we've actually used sewage.
Interesting. I'm getting it first.
So we're using sewage in certain communities where we see coronavirus in the sewage, and we know where it's coming from. And from there, the group out of Yale University is predicting outbreaks 3 days before it happens. That's going to be the thing that unlocks society. And between that and saliva testing, our hope is that we're able to have schools open in the fall, that we're able to really start to open up society and do it safely and be able to test large groups of the population.
So from sewage, you're finding particular areas where the virus may come from? Is that correct?
You can go and you can theoretically test the sewage from a dormitory at a college, and you'll know if there's an outbreak coming 3 days before there's an outbreak.
Dang.
So that's where we're at now. We've figured out how to predict some of these things, but now it's implementing them on a wide scale. And that's what's going to be the next 3 months. That's what June through August are, because if we do that right, schools can be open in the fall. And if schools are open in the fall, we're going to have college sports, we're going to have kids back running around, then you really can start to open up society. But we've got a ways to go. And in the meantime, I know there's a lot of your listeners and a lot of your family are wondering, well, what about the protests? I want to go to a protest and I want to support my community. What can you do to be safe? Honestly, the Minnesota Department of Health is saying if you went to a protest, service event, or rally in the last week, you should get tested, even if you don't have symptoms. So there is a risk. The only study out of Germany that looked at a carnival or a similar style of outdoor event, they showed that there were 2.5 times more cases of coronavirus afterwards, even from outdoor events like this.
Right.
So you are at more risk. But back in March, where they did that study in Germany, people weren't wearing masks. They weren't wearing gloves. They weren't using hand sanitizer. Do all those things. If you do those things, you give yourself the best chance. Also, I'd recommend staying in groups of people that you're comfortable with. Minimize your contact with people that you don't know in those groups. If you are going to break off into, larger groups, really try and keep the people that you're in close proximity to, the people that you know. And those are the safe things that you can do, because look, we all should have a voice now. We all should speak up. We all should do the things that we need to do to help society, but do it safely.
Right. Well, I have another question about the virus. So let's say, for example, I'm out and I pick the virus up on my hand from a doorknob or something. I use my hand sanitizers. And will the hand sanitizer actually kill the virus?
Yep. Another really good question. It will. Now, what you worry about is, let's say you went and you touched the doorknob and then you went and touched your face. Okay, it's here too now. It's not just on your hands. Most people, and I'm no exception, I touch my face a ton. When you start doing stuff with your hands, that's the risk. Now, I've had this conversation with members of my family. You get a package. Some people say you should leave the package out there for 24 hours. Some people say you should wipe down every single thing that you bring into the house. And I think there's a fine point where you have to do what's right for your individual situation. Not all of us can go afford all the hand sanitizer and soap and masks and stuff. Like, these are scenarios where if you wear a mask, anytime you're in an indoor scenario where you are with uncontrolled people, that could be a grocery store, that could be a mall, that could be a restaurant. Those are smart things to do. If you wear gloves in those scenarios, I'd highly recommend that too. If you go to, I'm sitting in an office right now, I don't have to wear a mask in this office. I'm the only person here. I'm not, the doorknob, I'm going to use hand sanitizer multiple times over the course of the day and use general practice. For your situation that you described with, you touch the doorknob, the hand sanitizer will work. What is just as useful is soap and water. And I'd encourage you to use the soap and water because the hand sanitizer, frankly, probably dries out your hands. And the soap and water is just as good. And it's something that's probably a little bit easier to get access to. Wash your hands, wear a mask, maintain social distance, and you're doing all the right things to keep yourself safe.
Well, can you reuse a mask? Now, that's a big question. A lot of people are wondering. Like the white and blue mask. Can you wash those with?
Right here.
Can you wash something like that with disinfecting soap and reuse it, or no?
So we do recommend that you reuse masks. I think there's a point at which you'll be able to tell that the mask is probably not clean. But when you do get home, setting your mask down and flipping off your gloves and then wiping down your mask are probably advisable before you go out again. And that can be done with any sort of rubbing alcohol as opposed to soap and water, just so that it dries out and it's safe to use again. And I think that that's totally reasonable. The other thing to remember with these masks, and this is why they're good masks, but they're not perfect masks. The perfect masks are reserved mostly for hospitals. When you put a mask on, and I'll show you, you see how there's gaps here?
Yes.
There's stuff that can come out here, and there's stuff that can come in those scenarios. If you really wanted to be extra careful, you could tape the sides of your mask, and that'll help.
Okay.
You want it to be flush to your skin as best as possible. And again, I'm not saying that everybody should go tape their face, because I'm going to have a lot of people who are going to dermatologists and are yelling at me too. But again, it's designed to show you that there's a safer way to do it. There's a best way and a good way. And sometimes good is good enough, depending upon what you're doing.
Great. That's so helpful. I truly appreciate this. So how close are we to finding a vaccination for COVID-19? Do you know?
Yeah. I think, we're certainly following the news and the resources that we have. I do think that there will be a vaccination that is imperfect, but works to help reduce the risk of you getting significantly ill. The current vaccinations that are out there don't prevent everybody from getting sick. They'll prevent some people from getting sick at all, but some people will still get coronavirus. They just won't get really sick. I think that that's probably good enough. And so does Dr. Fauci, and so do a lot of the experts. It's probably okay if the vaccine makes it so that you don't get really, really sick. But yesterday in Minnesota, we had a 31-year-old who passed away. So young people are still getting impacted by this disease. And that's where I'm just not ready to say like, hey, we're through the worst of it and that we should just go back to, day-to-day stuff. We're just not there yet. But I'm very optimistic about some of the unique technology that the country is developing on vaccines, and that they will be available before the end of the year.
Well, there's no other countries that developed one yet. I mean, because there are other countries that had the disease before we did. And it seems as though their scientists would have been working on vaccinations before ours. So,
well, it's a really good question. You prepared really well for this. Think about.
Thank you.
Think about this, okay? In your lifetime, has there ever been something where the entire world seems to be working at the same time together on something?
I don't think so. Not to my knowledge.
At the exact same time, I don't think anybody's ever prioritized it. So yes, the folks in England with the Oxford vaccine, in Australia, there are, and in China with the Sinovac vaccine, there are vaccine options that are developing. I'm pretty optimistic about what the US has come up with because we're very creative in general. Sometimes creativity is a negative because you get too cute and you try and get too creative. But I think that a lot of countries are going to come up with different types of vaccines. But think about how many people are going to need that vaccine in this country.
Yes.
It's a lot of people. And what I will tell you is the vaccine's not going to be perfect, but for the people who are out there, the way they're dosing this and the way they're studying it, the vaccine is going to be super safe. They're going to lower the dose so that it's even more safe than normal. And if it doesn't kill all of the virus, that's okay because it helped just enough. to open up society. So what we want is, if you're fearful about vaccines, this is a vaccine that's going to be super safe. The government and, Dr. Fauci and his team and the folks that are working on it, the companies, they're going to be extra safe on this one. I feel really good about that. So people shouldn't not want to get the vaccine. They should get it.
Will it help people like myself who are highly at risk, with my heart attacks and
Absolutely.
other people with high diabetes? Will it help them as well?
Yep, and that's part of the phase 3 study that's going to be starting in July with the Moderna vaccine and the Oxford vaccine. They're going to be giving it to a large number of people who are 18 to 55, but also people who are 55 and older, also people who are diabetic, also people who are younger. So they're going to give it to a wide variety of people. And it's possible that you may get 2 vaccine shots. You may get a booster shot pretty quickly afterwards. And although the data that's come out is pretty limited, it's all been really, really positive data. The stuff that we've seen in the last month, we've made more progress on this in 2 months than I think maybe anything in mankind's, in the last, 10 centuries. We've made so much progress here in 2 months to figure out something. It's truly a testament to all of the brain power.
Yes, I appreciate it, because this really had me shook and very nervous about a month ago. But now I've kind of relaxed, knowing that there's medications out there that could help. So,
but I don't want you to relax too much.
No, mentally I'm relaxing. Trust me, when I go outside, I got 2 masks, 1 hand sanitizer, 1 Lysol spray that I put in a little bottle. I got everything that's necessary.
Make sure your husband has a mask though too. I don't want you taking his mask.
No. Listen, I have. You know how you hold your keys, a key holder thing with brand new mask hanging there with cellophane over it to keep them clean by the door. So when you walk out of the door, you put your mask on. So I'm really good with this, because I don't want to catch anything, So
good.
Yeah.
Good. We don't want you to get sick either.
No. Okay. So listen, there's so many questions I can ask you. You've been so amazing. I'm ready to come to Minnesota.
Absolutely.
Is it safe to fly?
So another good question. So here's what we do for people that are traveling. The best times to travel are off-peak times during the day. You're going to be at risk on a plane, when there's the mass exodus to get off the plane or get on the plane. You want to be in that situation where you're kind of the first aboard, you're the last aboard. Like, you don't want to deal with the crowds. Once the ventilation system is turned on the plane and you start to hear the air conditioning system and everything, that actually helps to decrease the spread of the virus on a plane.
Oh, I thought the opposite.
It's actually helpful, but you're still at risk when you're standing in the TSA line. You're still at risk when you're going to the bathroom. You're still at risk when you're going to get your baggage. Those are all higher risk areas that we want to minimize time. I look at 2 things for travel. 1, can you fly early in the morning or late at night and avoid the crowds? If you can do that, I feel better about people traveling at this point. The second, and it doesn't mean there's no risk, but you're wearing a mask, you're wearing your gloves, you don't go and eat, you don't use the bathroom at the airport. Okay, now you've maximized your safety to get on and off the plane. The second part of this is, where are you going? Now, you're coming to Minneapolis. We are a moderate risk zone. Some parts of Minnesota are higher risk, but globally, we're probably a moderate risk community. There are other communities that are high risk, and I would be worried about people going into those high risk zones. I think we could protect you, and we'd love to have you come up here and visit the family. That's how we would strategize. So we had somebody the other day who was driving from Minneapolis out east, and we gave them, here were the cities to stop in. Here are the lowest risk cities along your journey. And so whether you drive or you fly, you always want to strategize. And it doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does give you some level of, hey, you know what? I did the best I could. I went the extra mile to try and plan a trip so that I could stay safe. And at some point, I'll have that same conversation with my family about, hey, this is how we're going to travel. Much harder with the child, but it's the same sort of thing. And I know Malik has gone through that too as he's been around the country.
Yeah, listen, it's so much I can ask. I got another question. I'm sorry, but we're traveling this week. It's my husband's birthday, and we're going to drive to Florida, Clearwater. Okay. I'm concerned about the hotel. I bought new pillowcases, and I have a bag with my sanitizing things in it. Is there any other things that I can do to kind of protect myself other than not going?
Yeah, and I think, look, whether it's a hotel or it's an Airbnb, there's an implied level of risk. There's certain hotels that have guaranteed certain standards. I know Hilton and Marriott have both done a good job of saying, like, hey, here are our new touch points of cleanliness. What you're going to try and do is, the room itself, if you can ask for a room that hasn't been stayed in for a period of time. Oh, that's probably an easy thing. So you want to take a room that hasn't been stayed in for, let's say, a week. That probably gives you a pretty good margin of safety within the room. Then you wipe down the metal surfaces and the hard surfaces. That, again, you've done your work. Then when you go to a city, you have a plan for what you're going to do, so that you're going to avoid large crowds. You're going to avoid some of the areas that maybe there's higher density within that. So if you go to Clearwater, let's look at within that area, what are the suburbs or what are the particular areas where there's been more virus exchange. And if you do that, then I do think it can be safe for you to travel. And you've, again, gone the extra mile to make sure that you've planned. At the same time, once you're in the room, you probably don't need to wear a mask. You've already done your extra work there. You don't need to wear gloves once you're in the room. But then when you go out in the community, again, when you go out in an uncontrolled place, you have your mask, you have your gloves, you have your other stuff.
So if the room that I choose has been slept in the night before, should I just spray it with my Lysol or?
That's certainly something that you should ask about. But I think by and large, the vast majority of hotels thus far have been pretty quiet. So there's probably a room that they can give you that, hasn't been there for, nobody stayed in there for the last 3 days. And I think a lot of times hotels would appreciate you, basically giving them, hey, a heads up a few days in advance so that they can make those accommodations.
Okay. Well, wow, this has been fantastic. Do you have any questions you want to ask me?
Well, I could ask you a ton of questions too. What do you think is the biggest learning point for someone like you in a period like this? Like, what are you going to tell your grandson 20 years from now about what you learned from this whole experience?
That's difficult, but I find that preparation or just being prepared, there's always signs of what's to come. History tends to repeat itself. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that the government knew that a pandemic may strike at some time. If we had prepared for that, then we'd be better off now. So I think I'll make sure that they know their history, because their history can guide their future. I'll make sure that they're financially stable. I think those are the most important things, and to be sure that they are spiritually grounded. Mm-hmm. When they're spiritually grounded, it blocks a lot of negative forces.
I'm going to give you a thought on that. So when I was speaking to someone last week, and he was telling me about his son was a high school senior and he wasn't able to go to graduation and he wasn't able to go to prom, and he was really upset about the whole thing. And I said, I want you to go back and I want you to look in the history books at the 1918 pandemic. And that was the Spanish flu pandemic. Millions of people died. And if you look back, and I love history, the section on the Spanish flu pandemic in our history books is about this big. Right. It's like a paragraph. It's a couple sentences. Unfortunately, for what we're going through in this world, this is a really small part of our history. This is a really small part of our life. Unless you make it a big part, unless you use this opportunity to catapult into the next thing. The book of Deena Beasley or the book of Robbie Sikka, it's a pretty long book, right? Like there's a lot of chapters, and life is just a bunch of stories with people in our chapters. Don't you want to write the best book possible? And I love your comment about, we're doomed to make the mistakes of history if, and it's going to repeat itself if we don't learn from it. So what are we going to take from something like this? We're going to take something that, this is a small part of our life, and we're going to make it the best part of the next chapter, because you're going to use the lessons of this. You're going to come together with your family. You're going to come together with your community so that the next chapter is even better. And I look at, when you look back at your childhood and you remember the social unrest of what was going on. And I look back in 1992, I was 11 years old. And I remember going to my computer in my bedroom and I wrote one page about the Rodney King riots, what I thought, what I was feeling. And I still have that, what I wrote down. I still remember in my brain going down and writing that and saying, this is scary. Is this what happens when you do something wrong?
Wow.
And we're still living that. We're still living those things. So as a society, we have a long way to go. But when you write down those things, you have those memories. And I think it's something that I've encouraged a lot of our staff and our players to write down what you're feeling right now, because you're going to want to look back. You're not going to want to lose this feeling. And when you're feeling down or you're feeling like, hey, I'm bored, there's nothing to do, there's something to do every day. Nobody should feel bored during a time like this. There's a lot you can do to get better. And I hope things like this and, through your positive nature and your, loving and outgoing and bubbly personality, that you can inspire people to go do something with their day.
Yeah, I hope so too. And that's why I created this podcast, Living the Dream. I'm going to ask you one last question, because I know you're a very busy man and I appreciate your time. Do you think that we're in a revolution?
I think we're always in a revolution. We're always evolving as a society. If we're not, then we've truly devolved into a negative state and chaos. So people should be challenging leadership. We have a void of leadership at the national level in many ways. We have a void of leadership at the local level in many ways.
Absolutely.
And so should we be challenging that? Absolutely. We should be trying to get better, and we should be developing this generation's leadership. I'll ask you a question. When you were growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A model. I wanted to be a model. I knew that when I was 5 years old. My mother reminded me of that, because when I was 7, I had my school pictures, and my mother had a big old Afro wig. And I said, Mom, can I wear your wig to take pictures in? My mother was like, why do you want to wear my wig? I said, because I want to be a model. And Robbie, Dr. Sikka, do you believe she let me wear her huge Afro wig to school to take school pictures in when I was 7 years old? And I have that picture, and it looks like a wig. So I knew at an early age what I wanted to do. And I pursued a modeling career. By the time I was 13 years old, I was doing fashion shows. By the time I was 15, I was going to New York and California with my mother and father. And by the time I was 20, before that, I was in Europe and Japan. So I modeled for 45 years.
So you lived the dream and you achieved what you wanted. And for a lot of kids growing up, like when I was a kid, I told myself, you know what? I want to be the president. And at one point, and I have pictures of me wanting to be a police officer as a kid too, but I for a long time, I wanted to be the president when I was like 8 years old. And eventually I realized I wanted to be a doctor and take care of athletes. But I don't think kids grow up today wanting to be the president. And I think that's different now. That's the role of the president, the title of the president is different. And especially over the last 4 years that's changed. And that makes me sad, because I want my daughter to grow up thinking, I want to be, I can be the president of the United States.
Well, I tell you this, Dr. Sikka, when Barack Obama was in office, I heard a lot of Black kids saying, I want to be president. male and female. So in our community, seeing and having a Black president, it made you believe that you could achieve that.
Yeah. And we need more of that. We need more leaders that inspire kids to want to serve, because the president is just the chief officer. They're the chief servant of the country. They're there to serve people. And we need more of that. We need more people who are pushing our children to want to achieve, to make a difference, and not just to go out and be successful business people or even successful athletes. It's to use your voice to evoke change, to help society. And I told my wife, when I married her, that I'm going to make every effort I can to be somebody who doesn't just help our family, but that helps society. Because I want our daughter, we didn't have a kid at that time, but I want our children to be inspired every day that their hard work can make a difference. Because if you work hard, you can achieve it. If you work hard and you truly believe it, you got to be willing to give it up every day to do something good for the world. And everybody can find their little niche. You don't all have to rush to be the president. There's only one president of the United States every 4 years, but people should aspire to that. And I think people should dream big, because when you dream big, you still land amongst the stars.
Absolutely. I love that. And on that note, I think that we'll close this show because I've taken up so much of your time, and you've been very, very informative. I appreciate you. This has been a most amazing interview. I love how you just lay out everything and make it seem so simple.
I appreciate that.
I'm very honored to have had you on my show, because I know that you are living the dream. I've read one of your quotes before saying that you don't get enough sleep because you're busy living your dream. Is that correct?
It is. I love what I do, and I love the blessings that I've been given in this world, from my family and from my friends and all the support. And I'm fortunate. I've had really, really great people along the way that I've come to interact with, like you and your family, and that's all a blessing. And we're all going to tell the next chapter of our lives together, which is going to be really, really exciting.
It will be. I think it's a magical time.
Well, happy birthday to your husband, and I hope you have a wonderful time. I'll send you some notes on traveling, and hopefully get you up here soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again, and you have a wonderful and blessed day, Dr. Sikka. Till the next time.
Thank you.
Okay, that's our show for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank my special guests, Dr. Sikka and Officer Turnipseed. It was so fantastic. You gave us so much great information. You guys should be safe out there, and let's pray that tomorrow will be a better day. Thanks for joining me on Living the Dream podcast. I'd like to thank my producer, Micah Beasley, for editing, and Darius Brandenburg, Shiva Child, for music. Thank you. Keep living the dream.